Red Gems. I am your inspirational mindset shifter and the founder and managing director of G.P.A Inc., where we inspire intellectual innovation. Today, I am happy that you can join us here as my guest, Darla Ridilla, a certified somatic trauma informed coach, takes you behind the win as we go beyond her cover story. Behind the win, there are experiences or challenges that we all encounter. Those dreams and visions that we set out to achieve can be greeted by many stumbling blocks, which often leave us questioning why or allow us to go back to the drawing board to determine where should we turn next and how should we take those next steps. But nobody really knows, as all they ever get to see is the cover story, that cover story that features so prominently on social media. And that cover story that often leaves others questioning, why can't I get there too? Here, we speak to authors, doctors, lawyers, professional coaches, entrepreneurs, your everyday people, and many more, as they inspire you by sharing with you their experiences and or the challenges that they encountered before basking in their winning season. Again, I want to thank you for joining us here today as my guest joins you to share on the topic healing from narcissistic abuse. And this was one of my favorite topics coming into this half year series because we had a few other episodes earlier this year. And for me, I am not sure if this is what I had experienced. And I know that that may have caused me to sometimes refrain from creating and formulating those relationships. And I often tend to stay in my bubble. This is not only for you, this is also for me in my healing process. So, hi, Dalia. Welcome to this platform as you share and inspire with our audience.
Thank you so much for having me today. Thank you.
Thank you again for coming. So we like to create this little pace as we go so everybody is comfortable. And if I were going along my merry way, we're just going along our merry way, and we happen to get stuck in an elevator, and we had the opportunity to introduce ourselves to each other. Who would you tell me Dala is, and what is she best known for?
Yeah, I would say, hi, my name is Darla, and I'm a pretty outgoing person, pretty active socially. I'm probably known mostly for my singing. I'm a singer, and so I go around town and jump in on the stage and sing with bands.
Oh, lovely. Sing and entertain and keep us, overjoyed and inspired. Lovely. I did a little bit of research coming into the topic, as again I shared that though I felt like maybe that was my experience, I am not the expert in this interview. So I went to do a little research ahead of the process, but again, we want some clarity from you. And statistics showed that it is estimated that narcissistic personality disorder is present in about 0.5% of the population. Personality disorder has trickled down, having a ripple effect which manifests into narcissistic abuse. And many women and men have been impacted. As we delve into the topic, can you share with us a little more on what the term narcissistic abuse means? Maybe what exactly it refers to, and if you're comfortable with sharing, what did this experience look like for you?
Yeah, narcissistic abuse, it can take on many forms. Many times it looks like a person who's very charming. Often they're well respected in the community because what narcissists do is project a persona to the public, but behind closed doors, they're a very different person. Often you will find your gut will feel like something's off, but I don't know what it is. Or there'll be red flags, and you might say, hey, I'm uncomfortable with this. And they're very good at explaining their behavior in a way that you accept it. What that looked like for me was love bombing, and that's a pretty common tactic in the beginning. They come on very strong. They are very attentive, like the man of your dreams. Like, wow, this is what I've always wanted and waited for. And then over time, they'll start what's called the discard, where they'll start to not be as attentive as they were, or, be kind of emotionally unavailable. And then finally will be the discard, where they'll just disappear or they're not communicating. And then that cycle will start again. And what happens is that cycle gets shorter and shorter every time. Over time, that erodes who you are as a person. The very first
Right.
relationship I was in was 10 years, and I was unrecognizable physically and mentally. It's like giving a child a lollipop and taking it away and repeatedly doing it over and over again. They want that lollipop, and that candy represents that first person that they were, the person they pretended to be in the beginning. And you'll do anything to get that person back.
Right. So you spoke about becoming unrecognizable in the process, and many men or women who have experienced this abuse, this type of abuse, have unfortunately been impacted in a way where they no longer feel like they have the will to win. They no longer feel inspired, and sometimes they tend to leave this experience as a victim as opposed to a victor. How were you able to remain inspired and resilient, shifting your mindset to overcome and now share expert knowledge and help individuals along their healing process?
I think it goes back to my childhood. I have always had, if you're familiar with the growth mindset, where instead of giving in, you just keep being resilient. As I lived in an abusive home, my father was very abusive. My mother did not protect me from him. And so I don't know if I was born with it or if I developed it, but from that early age, I realized there's only one person that's going to take care of me, and that's myself. And um, during that time, when he asked for a divorce and then tried to backtrack a couple of days later, something within me rose up and said, no, I'm not going to stay where I'm not wanted. I'm going to move out. I'm going to leave. While I went through a whole other process of what they call trauma bonding, and not be Stockholm syndrome, where the victim actually empathizes, sympathizes with their abuser. It's a long process, but I've just always had this inner strength within me. And as I've gotten older, it's gotten stronger.
Also, I really like that you spoke about knowing that it was time to leave and knowing that it was time to put yourself first. For those of individuals who are in relationships, not necessarily between a man or woman, but it can also be between a mother, daughter, son, siblings, and our inclination tells us, this might be a red flag. Still, again, we continue to give passes or things fly over our head. Again, I told you that I wasn't clear, and that's why I was so happy that you were coming on here to share today. But because we don't really know what signs to look for, we don't necessarily know what it looks like. What signs can one look out for, and when do you know it is time to create boundaries or it is time to leave?
One of the tactics that's used a lot is called gaslighting. Um, a perfect example of something that would happen to me is I would set my keys on the table and he would move them when I wasn't in the room. I would come back. I'm very methodical, very organized. The keys wouldn't be there. I would be frantically searching, saying, oh my gosh, what happened? Why aren't my keys there? I don't understand. And I would go to another room to go find them, and he would put them back. And they would be like, you're crazy. You flew off the handle and they were sitting here all along. They play mind games a lot. Um, there's also just a lot of deception, and you'll feel it like, oh, well, you said that we were going to meet up for dinner and then you didn't show up. Where were you? There's often some kind of strange story. I mean, there are just so many
Right.
things. They're crossing your boundaries. Often you don't have any with them. Yeah, that's for
Right.
sure.
So research has indicated, I like to go back to research because I don't like to assume and just go off my perception, that narcissistic abuse can impact one's mental health and their ability to be happy again, even when you get out of the situation, right? You're always, again, in your head and wondering, what if this person, and sometimes we don't necessarily give other people that chance, and we don't necessarily believe that good things and positive relationships can manifest, especially when you go through that type of experience. So, for those who feel this way, what are some of the things they can integrate into their day to day lives to feel inspired, empowered, have that type of hope, knowing that regardless of this challenge, they can be happy again. They can thrive from a positive mental space and great things can manifest for them.
Healing from narcissistic abuse is a lifetime experience, first of all. There's never going to be this pinnacle of I'm healed. It's always a process and you get better over time. But some of the really important things are during those relationships, they get you to question your own reality. It's a way of manipulation and control. So the first thing is honor your feelings. Say to yourself, my experiences and my feelings are real, and no one has the right to tell me what I did or did not experience. That's the first thing. And I also, I really believe that the reason that I got into these relationships and tolerated those behaviors, particularly some for many years, is because there was something lacking in me. I had a childhood wound. I wanted to be saved, and I didn't have a relationship with my father. And so I had to go back to that little girl. And I've been doing a lot of that, particularly through this course that I'm taking. It's not just been about being a coach, it's about
Right.
healing who I am. And it's saying, "Ooh, there's a body sensation. My throat feels tight. My stomach feels sick. When did I feel that before? Oh, well, that's that situation that happened when I was a kid." And so being loving to the inner child that wasn't loved or didn't feel safe, that's a big step. Smaller steps, if you're just beginning your journey, because sometimes that's overwhelming. Take a walk,
Right.
take a walk, meditate, um, get a support system. I think support system is so important, and friends that are not going to tell you what you need, what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. That's very important. If you want a faith, some type of spiritual belief, that was so helpful for me as well.
Okay, so that's really good. And support is really key, especially as we continue to maneuver through life and its challenges. And I know that sometimes, even with my experience with depression, I found it really hard because of one experience I had with a coach that I was going to that really did not believe. Again, we tend to walk through this space and through this earth, and we, though we are being challenged, we tend to walk with a smile on our face, and we tend to sometimes close up. How would you say, how important would you say it is for us to not necessarily let our guards down, because we understand that as you go through this space and this environment and this experience, trauma can poke its ugly head, and sometimes that can often tend to allow you to go into a shell. So how important it is for us to be able to open up and seek that support that we require.
I think it's one of the most important things, because without a sense of community and without support, this is not something you can do alone. It's a big monster. I look at it as like being in a cult. I was brainwashed over a course of actions to believe a certain thing about myself and what I deserved and what I didn't deserve. And so to deprogram, when you're in your head, it's hard to be objective with yourself. So you need that support system. When you're going to have setbacks, it's just going to happen. But to love you through that, to be more objective. I can't tell you how many times I've gotten out of a toxic relationship. It happened just the other day where someone said, "Oh, that I knew that guy wasn't right for you. I didn't like the way they did this, or I could tell they didn't like that." And I'm like, "Oh, why didn't you tell me?" I mean, maybe I wouldn't have heard it anyway, but having those people that have the insight on from the outside and sense things that you just choose to ignore is so valuable.
Right. I like that you spoke about seeking support. So for anybody else who is having that experience, don't walk the road alone. Seek support and lean into anybody else, that especially a trusted source, for that type of guidance and support. Because as we know, a narcissistic abuser can cloud your judgment and your decision making process, and whether you really come out on the other side. And often they usually attempt to derail your ability to seek, especially as you attempt to chase your goals, almost like a type of control, right? So how were you able to say, hey, this is my life, these are my dreams, that is my goal, and really take those bold steps to ensure that you pursue those goals and ensure those goals manifest?
It was a process. On one hand, I've always been a little bit rebellious. I don't like people controlling me. I don't like being told what to do. So there's that. But I think honestly, the pivotal moment for me was 11 years ago when I was on the threshold of taking my life. I was so broken, and I knew I could not continue to live the way I was, but I didn't know how to fix it. And I think it was in that moment of decision of basically crying out to my higher power, I don't know how to fix it. But if I take my life, the only thing that stopped me was he was saying I was crazy. And this is something they do. I'm not crazy.
Right.
I was acting crazy at times, but if I take my life, I've just given him ammunition. Now he is going to tell everyone I'm crazy, and I'm not here to defend myself. And that was what stopped me. So when I got up off that floor that day, I said, I don't know how to do this. And when you cry out like that, it's amazing how your higher power will bring people into your life. Um, so that was the beginning. A counselor came into my life and she said, do you know this is an abusive relationship? I didn't even know it. Took me a
Right.
year after getting out to realize that. And it was a process of reading books, getting counseling, getting really straight with my faith. Right now, a really intense look at my standards, my boundaries, who I am, my value as a person. And it's been something that's kind of been like a layering effect. It started out with baby steps. And I feel, especially this year, I feel like it's really exploded.
Yes, so I like that you spoke about baby steps because sometimes, even some days, I tend to not want to take those baby steps, but take those bigger leaps. And sometimes in life, we have to understand that as we maneuver through those challenges, that baby steps are essential. And sometimes we don't necessarily have to be too hard on ourselves. We just have to, again, look to the higher power and know that there is hope and keep the faith that great things can manifest for us and things can change along our journeys. With your experience, I am confident, again, as a subject matter expert, that you are using this story to show up for other men and women who may have had this experience. Can you tell us more about your practice as a certified somatic trauma informed coach? And with that practice, what services you offer, to whom you offer those services?
So, if you're not familiar with somatics, it's basically about body sensations and the nervous system. And so, what I am certified in, and I'm actually continuing my education to get a master's equivalent as well. We store trauma in our bodies. The Body Keeps the Score is the very first book I ever read last year. I did not know anything about it, and it really intrigued me. So, when a traumatic event happens, we store that in our bodies and it gets trapped, kind of like a file. The old days of the records when the needle got stuck in a rut. And I am learning how to get in touch with that, with past experiences, and releasing that trauma, giving it space, not marinating, giving it space and releasing it. As we work through the nervous system and we release that trauma, my technique is to ask questions. I don't believe it's my place to tell anyone what to do. I ask them questions and we kind of dive into it. And I kind of, well, we have a specific thing we're going to work on often during a session. It'll go in a direction that we don't expect. And I kind of am very flexible with that, oh, this came up. Let's explore that a little bit. So through a series of questions, I help them, to realize where the trauma resides, but also how can we resolve that? We work together to do that. I do primarily focus on women. That's kind of my passion. But I have recently had a couple of men approach me and say, we really need it too. And I think there is a need. Most men don't speak of it, but there are female narcissists out there as well. So while my focus is on women, I am open to doing one-on-ones with men. I do have a free support group on Meetup, but I am going to keep that just for the women, just because that's my focus. But absolutely, someone who has experienced narcissistic abuse or they suspect they have. Also, While narcissistic abuse is the focus, also trauma in general, because sometimes people who have been traumatized may have been abused in other ways and just don't even realize it at that time.
Okay, I'm happy about though your core focus would be women, that you're now opening up this space to men. Just so happy and proud of the men for really coming out and speaking up about the challenges that they also encounter, because in life, challenges are not only encountered by women. So again, I'm happy that men are also reaching out, seeking support, and finding the help that they need to along their healing and recovery journey. So for those individuals who, men and women alike, who would come across this video, where can they find you and how can they contact you?
Yes, so I have a website. It's highvaluewoman.info, and there is all the information. I also have a blog. I'm going to be starting my own podcast soon, so there'll be a media page. Yes, so and as well, I have my social media links. I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I have a little bit on TikTok, but not too much. So yeah, if they go to the website, everything is right there.
Okay, perfect. And guys, if you look on your screen, you would see the websites, the Instagram handle, the Facebook handle, and the TikTok handle is down below. So go ahead, follow, and be inspired. For those who are joining us here today, are there any last words of inspiration or any key takeaways that you would like to share?
I would just say, whatever that traumatic experience is, that you're not alone. A lot of us do feel alone, and be okay. And as you're on your own healing journey, sometimes it is a slow journey. And what I recommend a lot is write down your successes. If you're severely depressed, and I have been there, where just getting out of bed, it feels like an effort. You got out of bed and you made your bed, write that down. If you stood up to someone for the first time and set a boundary, write that down. It may seem small, but it's not. And I think that it's all those little things that kind of add up. Just be kind to yourself. Be okay with setbacks, because setbacks are opportunities for growth and learning. And just love, one of the things I had to do was forgive myself. I have been involved with several narcissists. Unfortunately, I did not have just one relationship. And I had to say, that's okay. That's the decision I made at that time.
Right. And I like that you spoke about forgiveness. And I'm just so happy that you were able to come on here today and share with us. For me, coming into this again, I did share earlier that I was not clear, but now I think I'm clear on the matter. And for me, my key takeaways from you sharing your story and your experience, and again, your expert knowledge, was that it is very important. Sometimes I know that we can feel not so willing to share because sometimes we're ashamed of our story, but it is very important to seek support. And I ask that those individuals who come across this space and this interview would just head onto your page and allow you to assist them in their healing journey. And for me, I ask that also for myself, that we continue to take small steps and continue to create these healthy boundaries that can allow us to maneuver through those spaces just a little, to get the weight off on our back a little and stop beating up on ourselves for our experiences, but rather take the necessary steps to lean on each other for support, continue to be an inspiration to others, and heal in our journey. So again, guys, I want to thank you so much for joining us here. I want to thank Darla for sharing again with us, because so many men, and women are being impacted by narcissistic abuse, and sometimes we just don't know it. So now that we're a little more clear, I want us to go out into the world, tell our story, lean on each other for support, and get the help that we really desire. Thank you so much again for joining us.